You'd never guess it by looking at him, but this quiet, fragile Swede helped change the NHL forever. Ulf Nilsson didn't come with brute strength or a booming slapshot. He came with something else: unmatched vision, smooth skating, and the courage to challenge an entire system that didn't believe in players like him. They said he wouldn't last, that he'd break under the pressure, but instead he broke the barrier. So how did a player they thought was too soft become the reason the NHL finally opened its doors to Europe? And why did he keep pushing even when the game tried to push him out? To understand how Ulf Nilsson changed the NHL's view of European players, we have to go back to the late 1960s. In a small Swedish town called Nynäshamn, there was a skinny teenager with blonde hair, quiet eyes, and soft hands, on the ice and off it. He didn't look like someone who would one day challenge the toughest hockey league in the world. Back then, the NHL was a North American fortress. European players were seen as soft, flashy, and too polite for the brutal, physical style of the league. Most teams didn't even bother scouting in Europe. The idea that a Swedish forward could not only compete, but lead, was unthinkable. But Ulf didn't care about the labels. He wasn't trying to fit in, he was trying to win. He studied the game with a quiet obsession, mastering every angle, every pass, every opening on the ice. And when he teamed up with Anders Hedberg, another Swede with elite speed, the two started doing things no one had ever seen before. They weren't just good, they were changing the playbook. And that scared people, because if they could succeed, it meant the old rules of hockey didn't matter anymore. Ulf Nilsson was born in Nynäshamn, a quiet town near the coast of Sweden, where winters were long and frozen ponds became playgrounds. Like most Swedish kids, Ulf learned to skate almost as soon as he could walk. But even at a young age, there was something different about him. While other kids chased the puck wildly, Ulf saw the game like a chessboard. He didn't just skate fast, he thought fast. His passes were sharp, timed perfectly, and always seemed to land right on his teammate's stick. Coaches noticed right away he wasn't flashy and he wasn't loud, but he made everyone around him better. As he got older, his skills kept growing. By his teenage years, Ulf was already playing against men in Sweden's top leagues. He wasn't the biggest or strongest, but he didn't need to be. His mind did most of the work. Scouts from North America started hearing whispers about this calm, clever Swedish forward who could control the tempo of a game without even raising his voice. At the time, most NHL teams weren't looking overseas, but in the World Championships and international friendlies, Ulf began to face Canadian and American players. And he didn't just hold his own, he outplayed them. He moved through tight spaces, passed through heavy traffic, and made quick decisions under pressure. To some it was surprising, but to those who watched him grow up in the Swedish rinks, it was just Ulf being Ulf. The quiet kid from Nynäshamn had started to catch the eyes of a whole new hockey world. By the early 1970s, Ulf Nilsson had become one of the most talked about names in Swedish hockey. But what came next shocked everyone. Instead of heading straight to the NHL, Ulf made a bold move. He joined the World Hockey Association, a brand new league that was trying to compete with the NHS. The WHA was more open to the European talent, and the Winnipeg Jets saw something in Ulf that most North American teams still ignored. He didn't just play the game, he understood it on a different level. The Jets brought in Ulf alongside another Swedish forward, Anders Hedberg. At first, nobody knew what to expect from the two Europeans. Many thought they'd be pushed around or fade away, but from their very first game together, Ulf and Anders made it clear they weren't there to survive, they were there to dominate. The chemistry between them was instant. Ulf was the setup man, calm and calculating. Hedberg was lightning fast with a nose for the net. Together they tore through WHA defenses like nothing the league had seen before. In their first season with the Jets, Ulf scored 114 points in just 78 games. That's not a typo, 114 points. He wasn't just fitting in with North American hockey, he was leading it. The very next season he went even higher, 120 points, including 85 assists. And Hedberg, he was right there with him, scoring goal after goal thanks to Ulf's pinpoint passes. The two of them, along with superstar Bobby Hull, formed one of the most dangerous lines in pro hockey. What made it even more incredible was that Ulf and Anders were doing it all while dealing with constant pressure. Opponents didn't take it easy on them. They were targeted, hit hard, and challenged every night. But they never backed down. Instead of getting rattled, they stayed composed, and they kept scoring. Each assist, each goal, each win sent a message. European players could handle the physical game. They could play at the highest level, and they could lead a team. By the end of their third season together, the Jets had won the Avco Cup, the WHA's version of the Stanley Cup, and Ulf had racked up nearly 300 points in just 3 years. He wasn't just proving himself, he was changing minds. NHL teams once closed off to European talent were starting to pay attention, and it all started with a quiet Swede and a partnership that couldn't be stopped. In 1978, Ulf Nilsson finally made the jump to the NHL. The New York Rangers were the team that took the chance. After years of dominating in the WHA, Ulf and his longtime line mate Anders Hedberg signed massive contracts to come to the world's biggest hockey stage. It was a bold move, and not just because of the money. Ulf became one of the first European players to switch over in the middle of his prime. At the time, joining the NHL as a European was still seen as a gamble. There were still people who believed the European style was too soft, too fancy, and not built for the gritty, punishing world of NHL hockey. The media in New York didn't hold back. Headlines questioned whether these finesse players could survive. Fans weren't convinced either. Ulf's smooth passes and quiet personality didn't exactly scream Broadway. Some reporters even called him too polite for New York. And when he didn't score in his first couple of games, the doubts grew louder. But Ulf wasn't there to play into anyone's idea of what a hockey player should be. He just played his game. And once the puck started bouncing his way, people saw what the hype was about. In just 59 games that first NHL season, Ulf scored 66 points, including 39 assists. His vision on the ice, his ability to find teammates in impossible spots, and the connection he still had with Hedberg turned the Rangers into a serious offensive threat. He wasn't flashy for the sake of being flashy. He made passes that worked, passes that gave his team life. But even as his play began to win over the fans, there was something else happening, a more dangerous side of the game that Ulf couldn't avoid. The NHL in the late 70s wasn't just about skill. It was rough, mean, and often brutal. Enforcers roamed the ice looking for targets, and Ulf, with his European background and calm style, became a target fast. Opponents didn't just want to beat him, they wanted to send a message. They wanted to remind him that this was their league, that if he wanted to keep playing like he was still in Sweden or the WHA, he'd have to pay for it. And he did. One of the worst moments came during a game against the Islanders, New York's fierce rivals. The building was packed, the tension was high, and then it happened. Ulf was skating near center ice when Dennis Potvin, one of the league's top defensemen and a hard-hitting presence for the Islanders, lined him up. With one crushing blow, Potvin slammed into Nilsson's leg and sent him crashing to the ice. The crowd went silent. Ulf didn't get up. His ankle was shattered. It wasn't just a hit, it was a statement. The Islanders were known for their physicality, and that night, they sent a message. If you're going to bring European flair into our game, you better be ready to get hit like everyone else. The injury was devastating. Ulf missed the rest of the 1979 season, including the Rangers' run to the Stanley Cup final. And even worse, some fans blamed him. They said he was too soft to stay healthy, as if the injury was somehow his fault for not playing like a North American grinder. But what people didn't see was what happened after that. Ulf could have quit. He could have gone home, back to Sweden, where the game was safer and the style more suited to his strengths. But he didn't. Instead, he focused on recovery. He worked through pain, through doubt, and through the quiet whispers that his best days were already behind him. When he returned the following season, he wasn't quite the same skater, but the vision was still there. The touch, the awareness. Even after a career-altering injury, Ulf still managed to put up 38 points in just 39 games. The numbers might not have told the whole story, but anyone watching could see. He was still special, but the hits kept coming. In another game against the Philadelphia Flyers, a team known for their punishing Broad Street Bullies style, Ulf took another brutal blow. He was shoved from behind into the boards and went down hard. The Flyers didn't care about finesse. Their mission was to rough up anyone who dared to play the game differently. Ulf would later say that North American hockey was the toughest test he ever faced, not because of the skill level, but because of the constant physical punishment. Every game felt like a battle, not just for the puck, but for survival. And yet, through all of it, he kept showing up. That's the part most people don't talk about. Not just the points or the pretty plays, but the resilience. The guy who looked too fragile to last in the NHL ended up earning respect the hard way. He took the hits, he battled through injury after injury, and he still found ways to help his team. Ulf only played 3 full seasons in the NHL. His body, worn down by the constant abuse, just couldn't take more. But in those seasons, he left a mark. Not just with his numbers, but with what he represented. Because every time he got back up, every time he made another perfect pass after getting crushed into the boards, he proved something bigger. That European players could handle the NHL, that skill and toughness weren't opposites. They could exist in the same player. And in doing that, Ulf Nilsson helped open the door for a generation of European stars who followed. Guys like Peter Stastny, like Jari Kurri, like Mats Näslund. Players who were told the same things Ulf had heard, but now had someone to point to. Someone who had already taken the hits, paid the price, and still found a way to shine. Because yes, Ulf Nilsson got knocked down, but he never stayed down. It was February 25th, 1979. Madison Square Garden was packed. The Rangers were hosting their crosstown rivals, the New York Islanders. At that point in the season, Ulf Nilsson had already shown flashes of his brilliance, but many fans still weren't sure. The European experiment hadn't completely won them over. That night, everything changed. The Rangers had been trailing early. The Islanders came out physical, aggressive, trying to set the tone. But Nilsson didn't flinch. Instead, he responded the only way he knew how, with perfect hockey. Late in the second period, Ulf got the puck in the neutral zone. He cut across the ice, looked off two defenders, and sent a no-look cross-ice pass that split the Islanders' defense. The puck landed perfectly on Anders Hedberg's stick, who finished the play with a rocket into the top corner. The crowd roared. The announcers were stunned. It wasn't just a beautiful play, it was the kind of pass that only Ulf Nilsson could make. That one assist did more than just tie the game. It flipped the entire energy in the building. The soft Swede had just embarrassed one of the most physical teams in the league, and he made it look easy. After the game, Rangers forward Phil Esposito was asked about Ulf's play. He didn't hesitate. "He sees the ice better than anyone I've ever played with," Esposito said. "He's not soft, he's smart. He's what this league needs." From that night on, the fans started to believe. They saw that Ulf wasn't there to avoid the game's intensity, he was there to outthink it. And that assist, in a game filled with tension, was the moment everything changed. Ulf Nilsson didn't just win over the crowd, he changed how the Rangers played hockey. Before his arrival, the Rangers leaned heavily on dump and chase hockey. It was a physical, straightforward style, gritty, but not creative. But once Ulf and Hedberg joined the lineup, everything shifted. Suddenly, New York's offense had flow. Passes were cleaner, breakouts were faster, and scoring chances were created through puck movement, not just brute force. In 59 games that season, Ulf racked up 66 points, nearly a point per game. He wasn't just putting up stats, he was making everyone around him better. Anders Hedberg had 79 points. Phil Esposito had a late career surge, in part because of Ulf's vision and playmaking. The Rangers finished with 91 points on the season, their best record in years, and made it all the way to the Stanley Cup final. Opposing coaches started taking notice. Fred Sherrow, the Rangers head coach at the time, once said, "Ulf brings a European calmness to the ice. He slows the game down, makes the right read, and gives us control. That's something you can't teach. That's instinct." And he wasn't the only one noticing. Ulf's success, along with Hedberg's, opened the door for more European talent. NHL scouts, who once ignored Sweden and Finland, started watching those leagues more closely. The idea that European players were too soft or too slow started to fade. Slowly but surely, more Swedes, Finns, and Czechs began to enter the league. Players like Thomas Stain, Pelle Lindberg, Mats Näslund, they followed the same trail that Ulf had helped carve. And it wasn't just because of his talent, it was because he proved that intelligence and finesse could win in a league that was built on muscle. In many ways, Ulf Nilsson didn't just change the Rangers, he helped reshape the NHL's future. But just as his star was rising, just as the critics had been silenced, it all came crashing down. That iconic pass against the Islanders, that game would also be his last that season. Just minutes after setting up Hedberg's goal, Ulf was skating near center ice when Dennis Potvin delivered a crushing hit. The collision left Nilsson crumpled on the ice. Trainers rushed to him. The building went quiet. He had broken his ankle. The New York Post ran the headline the next morning, "Potvin breaks Nilsson, season over." It wasn't just a hockey injury, it became a rallying cry. Rangers fans were furious, and so was Ulf. The man who just won over Madison Square Garden was now watching his team's playoff run from the press box, his leg in a cast. Doctors said the injury was severe, but he would recover, and he did, at least physically. But something changed after that. Ulf was never quite the same player. His quickness dipped, his cuts weren't as sharp, and most of all, the fear of another cheap hit seemed to follow him. He came back the next season and still posted solid numbers, 38 points in 39 games. But he wasn't the same force. The injuries piled up. His body, worn down from years of abuse, simply couldn't keep up with his hockey mind. By 1983, just 5 years after entering the NHL, Ulf Nilsson retired from pro hockey, and the question still lingers, what if he had stayed healthy? What if Dennis Potvin never lined him up at center ice? What if Ulf had been able to play a full season in 1979 and help lead the Rangers in the Stanley Cup final? Could they have won it all? There's no way to know. But what's clear is this: Ulf Nilsson's NHL career was cut short, not because he wasn't good enough, but because the league wasn't ready to protect players like him. Still, even in just a few seasons, he left a legacy, one that went far beyond goals and assists. Because Ulf Nilsson proved that hockey wasn't just a game of hits, it was a game of vision, timing, and courage. And even if his time was short, his impact will never be forgotten. Ulf Nilsson never had a flashy farewell. There was no farewell tour, no sold-out send-off, no final goal to bring the house down. His last NHL season came quietly in 1982-83. At that point, injuries had taken their toll. The man who once glided through defenders with ease now struggled to stay on the ice for more than a few weeks at a time. In his final year, Ulf played just 10 games. He recorded 5 assists, nothing historic, but still a reminder of the playmaker he had always been. He wasn't chasing the spotlight. He knew his body couldn't handle the grind anymore. So when the season ended, so did his NHL career. There was no press conference, no headlines, just a quiet goodbye from a player who had never needed noise to make his presence felt. But his exit didn't erase what he had done. Ulf Nilsson had helped bring a new style of hockey into a league that once rejected it. And even if most fans didn't notice the moment he stepped away, the ones who knew, knew. While people called him fragile, the truth is that Ulf Nilsson was one of the toughest players to ever wear an NHL jersey. Because toughness isn't just about throwing punches or dropping gloves. It's about taking hit after hit and coming back again. It's about playing with pain. It's about standing in front of thousands of doubters and proving with every shift that you belong. Ulf didn't just survive the NHL, he helped change it. He was one of the first Europeans to break through the old school wall of North American hockey. He didn't yell, he didn't fight, he didn't need to. He let his game speak, and when others saw what he could do, how his passes changed games, how his brain read the ice like a book, they realized maybe they were wrong about European players. Maybe, just maybe, there was more than one way to play this game. Because of Ulf, more doors opened. More Swedes, more Finns, more Czechs came over. The NHL became a global league, and it started with players like him. Players who were willing to be first, willing to take the hits so others didn't have to. That's not fragile, that's fearless. Do you think Ulf Nilsson deserves more credit for changing hockey? Let me know what you think in the comments. Was he underrated, or did his short career overshadow what he truly did for the game? And if you enjoyed this story, click the video on your screen to watch how a too-soft European changed NHL forever. The unbelievable journey of Börje Salming, the Swedish trailblazer who didn't just survive in the NHL, he changed it forever. Thanks for watching.